Pardon me, I hadn't pushed recording. So in thinking about drunkenness, just in thinking about how the lifestyle is described, so let's go ahead and read our passage. So we're in Proverbs chapter 23, and we're going to start at verse 29, as it says, "Who has woe? Who has sorrow? Who has contentions? Who has complaints? Who has wounds without cause? Who has redness of eyes? Those who linger long at the wine, those who go in search of mixed wine." Says, "Do not look on the wine when it is red, when it sparkles in the cup, when it swirls around smoothly. At the last it bites like a serpent and stings like a viper. Your eyes will see strange things, and your heart will utter perverse things." Says, "Yes, you will be like one who lies down in the midst of the sea." Let me move it up a little bit. "Or like one who lies at the top of the mast, saying, 'They have struck me, but I was not hurt. They have beaten me, but I did not feel it. When shall I awake that I may seek another drink?'" Okay, so let's just go and get into it. One reason that I like to approach it more thinking about how the individual is described is, drunkenness. There may be those who have issues with drunkenness in the church. Usually people keep those things pretty hidden so other folks don't find out about it until trouble happens. But at the same time, how the person's described, there are applications to make even beyond drunkenness. So, to go ahead and get into it, question number one is, how would you describe this person's life and lifestyle? Looking at those first few verses, how would you describe their life and lifestyle? Anyone want to get the ball rolling tonight?
They're a slave.
Okay, they're a slave. What do you mean by that, Pat?
They're a slave to the alcohol.
Okay, they're a slave to the alcohol. The way it all ends is, when can I go get another drink?
Mhm.
What else would you say? What other comments would you have? Yeah, go ahead, Mark. Thank you.
Well, just simply horrible, troubled, addicted, you know.
Yeah, it's not a good life.
Mhm.
To look at those first few verses, who has woe? Who has sorrow? Who has contentions? Who has complaints? Who has wounds without cause? So here's a person, because of their choices, they are engaging in self-destructive behavior.
Mhm.
They're hurting themselves. It's not a good life. Go ahead, Brenda. Do you have something?
They definitely lose motivation to help themselves. They let the woes of the world bring them down, and um, and then as they keep drinking, they're swaying, they're off balance. They can't see, they can't feel, pain.
Yeah.
But I think they're feeling the negativity of life.
Okay. And that's probably one issue that is real hard to address in 30 minutes or less.
Mhm.
Namely, how do we deal with life's trouble? When things don't go our way. When, things don't go our way at work, things aren't going the way we want to with family, things aren't going the way we want to, whatever.
Mhm.
And sometimes people, rather than facing the issue, they would rather self-medicate. The sad thing is, and this is what I mean by just this thought process. Um, Sadly, there's a lot of, especially in our country and maybe in other countries, there are a lot of children who are being taught rather than how to deal with their issues as they grow up, and their brains are developing, and they're trying to, they should be learning how to deal with life's issues. And instead, because we're medicating kids at a younger and younger age, that children aren't learning how to deal with trouble. And so here this individual is, it's like, this is not a good life. This is not a peaceful life. This is a life that is filled with woe. And yet at the same time, the person says, And this is, as it ends, when shall I awake that I may seek another drink? The proverb which is quoted in the New Testament about a dog returning to its vomit,
Mhm.
a fool repeating his folly. It's like you got yourself into this mess, and yet you're going to go back and you're going to do the same thing again. And that is drunkards do not have a monopoly on that problem. That problem extends beyond drunkenness, where people repeat the same mistake.
Sure.
Just think about how just my own mistakes, you know, my, and it's like, how many times do I do the same stupid thing? And I talk to myself and I'm like, Johnny, you messed up before and you're doing it again. Why would you do that? When are you going to learn your lesson? And by the way, I do speak to myself in the third person, but and so it's just self-destructive behavior.
Sure.
And to think about it that way, the person is hurting themselves. And our decisions, our issues, very often it's like we're hurting ourselves. What other comments do you have? Comments or questions? Go ahead, Pat, and
Yeah,
then Nancy. Thank you.
Nobody's an island. You hurt everybody around you when you're that way.
As much as you would like to make yourself an island,
You're
you'd
not.
like to push everybody away, or at least by your actions, you are pushing everybody away.
Most people at least have a mother and father if they're not married. They have brothers and sisters, most of them. And
Yeah,
you end up hurting everybody around you. And then if you're married and you have children, that's even worse.
yeah, yeah. Go ahead, Nancy.
The person they're describing is living a life of deception. And I think at first, like you said, the wine sparkles in the cup, but nowadays it's like, so this is such an acceptable thing and it's fun and everyone's doing it. But we all realize that, having habits like that can lead to so many bad things.
Yeah, and to recognize what drunkenness is.
Mhm,
You are consumed by what you consume.
mhm,
And so here's someone who's consuming alcohol, obviously. And I was just thinking of this is Ephesians 5 at verse 18. And do not be drunk with wine in which is dissipation, but be filled with the Spirit, speaking to one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing and making melody in your heart to the Lord. I think one of the issues is perhaps y'all remember it's the parable or when the Lord is talking about the demon that goes out of a man. And then when he comes back and he finds the house, empty and swept and all those things, and he brings all of his buddy demons with him, and then the end is worse than the beginning. It's one thing to remove, you cleanse the dish, you cleanse the bowl, but then you have to fill it. If you don't fill it, if you just leave it empty, something's going to find its way in there. That's one of the problems with sin in general. It's not enough to just not sin. It's no, it's lay aside wickedness and receive with meekness the implanted word. If you try to lay aside wickedness but you don't fill it with anything, then it's the end is going to be worse. So do not be drunk with wine, but be filled with the Spirit. So anyway, any other thoughts or comments?
yeah, John.
Yeah, go ahead, Bruce.
Um, I said that many times they're manipulating. They lie often. They can be not very dependable. But the worst thing is, from my experience, they do not admit that it controls them.
Yeah,
They have the control over it whenever they want to.
mhm.
They don't have to drink, but then they always go back to it. So it's a life of lies.
yeah. Bruce, do you think that all sin in a way is like that? And what I mean, I'm thinking of like Romans chapter 6 where Paul is and that's the chapter, shall we continue to sin that grace may abound? And then he starts talking about You're either a slave of righteousness or you're a slave of sin. It's one or the other. Because what you're just describing about it, where the person says, the person thinks they have control over it. And I've shared this analogy before, working at the factory. And I still remember the guy's name is Chris Wilson, and he's still up there. He was a smoker. He would quit smoking maybe once or twice every shift. And he was always, "Oh, well, I'm going to quit. This is my last one. It's my last one until the next break time." You know, and I know that that's kind of a a funny analogy, but it's like people think they have control over sin, and it's like no, the devil has his hooks in you.
Mhm.
It's like you're a slave of sin, and until you become a slave of righteousness, it's like it's not going to go well.
Mhm.
Other comments or things? Yeah, go ahead, Brenda.
I have a quick story. When I used to work at Baker and Hostetler, I was doing my paralegal work, and the other paralegals that I associated with knew I didn't drink. And they said to this summer intern who came in one year, uh, Brenda's never been drunk. She had the audacity to come over and say and ask me, how come you've never been drunk? And I just don't understand why somebody would come over and talk to me about never being drunk. So, it was just appalling to me to have that experience.
Yeah, the world seems like there's a scripture that talks about the world thinks that it is strange that we do not run in the same flood of dissipation.
Mhm.
And it's just sadly that's how it is. They can't imagine. They can't imagine people trying to not live in a worldly manner.
Mhm.
And it's foreign to them. And just as much as it's foreign to them, they are foreign to us.
Right.
And so at least in that separation, that idea should be there that we should be different and those differences should be recognizable. Let's go on to our second question for time's sake. The second question is, how would you describe what's happening in verse 31, where it says, "Do not look on the wine when it is red, when it sparkles in the cup, when it swirls around smoothly." Go ahead, Pat.
It's desirable to look at.
Okay.
If you're trying to not drink, you're better off not to see it.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, we're just looking at we're telling someone it's like the devil tells Eve. Eve says it's like, "Oh no." The devil or she says, "Well, he said we'll die." "No, you won't die." And when she looked at it and when she saw that it was blank blank blank.
Mhm.
When David's up on the roof and he does what? He looks and
Mhm.
then he looks again at Bathsheba. And you just think about this idea of you're looking at appearances. Like here in talking about drunkenness, it looks smooth, right? Do not look on it when it's red, when it sparkles in the cup, when it swirls around smoothly. At the last, it bites like a serpent. You judge by appearances, and you're going to end up getting burnt. And you just think about, all of the scriptures that speak about that idea of warning us about not to be deceived by appearances and judging things outwardly. They're the Pharisees were the Pharisees who were going around in long flowing robes, standing on the street corner. And it's like, man, they sure did seem religious, didn't they? Even to the point where when they would swear, they would say things like, "Well, if you swear by the temple, you don't have to keep it, but if you swear by the gold on the temple, then you got to keep it." And it's like, so by the facade. And it's like they are judging by appearances. And they're just looking at appearances. Another place where this shows up in Proverbs, do you remember when it talks about the immoral woman? and there she is with the attire of a harlot. And the simple youth goes by her way, and she says, "Turn in here. My husband's gone on a long journey," and yada, yada, yada. And by the way, I paid my vows, and all who went to her were mighty men, and her paths lead down to hell. And you got to get beyond the surface. Um, Appearances can be deceiving. All just think about a real estate analogy. Y'all have probably seen shows or you've heard people, who talk about flipping houses. You know, flipping houses. Some of them may be reputable, but there for a while, there's a whole lot of people who are flipping houses, and they would just go in and paint the walls and throw a little carpet down and
Mhm.
jack the price up by 40 or 50 grand.
Mhm.
And if you don't come in and look at that foundation, you're going to be in trouble. If you're just judging by curb appeal, mm-mm. Now the point is you have to make spiritual applications. Not everything that looks good and holy actually is. So, any other thoughts on that one about judging by appearances? It's like don't look on it when it's red.
Mhm.
Here, I'll give you one. I've never had a problem with drunkenness. Lord willing, I never will. You all can probably guess my vice by looking at me now that I've talked about appearances. Can sometimes with food, and you're looking at it, and it's like, you go to a restaurant and they have some sort of, brownie volcano with ice cream, something like that. And man, it looks good, doesn't it? And how do you feel an hour after you eat it? When your blood sugar spikes, and all of a sudden you feel like trash and you can't sleep. And it's like, hey Johnny, I guess you should have had better discernment than to just say, well, it looks good. It's like here concerning this alcohol. Well, it looks good. So, anyway. All right, question number 3. What is the person seeing and saying in verse 33? Your eyes will see strange things and your heart will utter perverse things. So, what's going on here? Go ahead,
Yeah.
Nancy.
It
Oh,
sounds to me like they're going through withdrawal and they're in a delirium.
Well, at least delirium,
Hmm.
right? They're drunk.
Right.
Your eyes will see strange things. Bruce,
Mhm.
what were you going to say?
I was going to say it's like they're hallucinating.
Hmm.
Uh, maybe like they think they're seeing snakes crawling all over them or something like that, their body, saying words that don't make any sense.
And you don't even have to, you could include hallucinations, but just average regular old drunkenness. How many guys and gals end up sleeping together, coming home from a bar or anywhere else, and they would never do that when they were sober. It's sort of like I don't have to explain it. Y'all know what I mean. People who are drunk, they're not seeing clearly, right? That's the point. They're not seeing clearly. It's like you're going to see, it says your eyes will see strange things and your heart will utter perverse things. When guys at the factory would ask me to go to a bar, because we got off work at 7 in the morning, and the bars open pretty early in a factory town. They pretty much never close.
Right.
And the guys would, want me to go to a bar. And it's like, listen, one or two things are going to happen. And it's I'm either going to go home with someone I shouldn't go home with, or I'm going to take a swing at someone I shouldn't take a swing at.
Mhm.
One of those two things is likely to happen. Your eyes will see strange things, and your heart will utter perverse things. Jennifer was telling me the teachers up there at the elementary school. Oh, at the Christmas party, which she doesn't go to, and there's pretty often alcohol involved. And it's just sad. It's just sad. One of the teachers, if I remember the story correctly, Her husband, once he gets good and schnockered at the party, goes around and starts hitting on all the other teachers. And it's like, wow, sounds like a good time. And it's not a one-time occurrence. Happens every year.
Mm.
Your eyes will see strange things and your heart will utter perverse things. And it's just not good. So what you have is a person who has no discernment, right? They're not discerning between right and wrong. They've lost all their inhibitions and it's just sad, but that's what happens. They've lost whatever discernment they had. Um, what thoughts do you have on that one? As far as so here's the person, and to use y'all's figure of hallucinations. Do they believe what they're seeing?
Sure.
They believe it. So they are self-deceived. Now, how many people out there are self-deceived, and can we be self-deceived? Like, it happens. It happens. The sun's starting to go down. I'm going to have to turn a light on. We'll see if it blinds everybody. Whew. Well, I might be able to turn a light on a good day. There we go. Let there be light. And there is light. So here's a person who has, they see strange things. There's different scriptures that talk about, and there's one especially that talks about one who deceives others and is deceived. And it's that figure that's always kind of, can you imagine standing there at Judgment Day and you've been deceived? That's kind of a scary thought when you think about it. When you've deceived yourself. Again, the Pharisees who trusted in themselves that they were righteous, and they're self-deceived. And so here's a person, they will see strange things and their heart will utter perverse things. And they believe it. They're believing it. Anyway, any other thoughts on that one? On that? Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, alcohol is a poison, and it acts on the brain, so all rational control is released, the inhibitions are removed. It's wrong on so many counts. It it hurts your liver, your detox organ that your body's trying to tell you, it's a poison, get rid of it. Can get cirrhosis, the liver, the DTs, delirium tremens. It's just horrible, and then that they're addicted to it. And like you say, there's sometimes it's self-medication. But,
Yeah. The sad thing is there for a while, the medical community, thought it was a good idea to have one glass of wine per day, that it was good for the heart. Even they have come out and said, yeah, that's not right anymore. They've come out and said, nope, that was wrong. That was bad advice. And it's sort of like, when scripture says, 1 Corinthians chapter 5, even the Gentiles, at this point, even the world, and that's the sad thing, amongst younger people anymore, I think the rates of drinking are actually going down for younger people. Might be for different reasons. Frankly, some of it might be because it's cost prohibitive and things are just so expensive anymore. Or it may be that they're just realizing it's not good. It's not a good lifestyle. It's not a good lifestyle. It's not good choices. It's not healthy. It's it's a problem. It's just a problem. And so it's just sad when people go down this road. And again, what we consume ends up consuming us. And so, while the verse is about drunkenness, I just wanted you to think about how it's described. If we aren't seeing, if we are not seeing things clearly, I was talking with Ryan actually. Oh, a few weeks ago, I think it was Ryan, and we were just talking about like how we perceive ourselves. And of course, in my mind, obviously, I'm still in my younger 20s, you know, and it's like it's our self-perception, and what we need to do is we need to be very honest with ourselves and not deceive ourselves. If if I have a problem, I need to see it clearly. Now, whether I do that on my own or my brother or sister helps me to do it whatever it is, I've got to see the problem clearly because ultimately, if the speck or the beam is going to come out of my eye, it has to happen voluntarily. It's not like the Lord is going to pull the beam out against my will. It's not like my brethren can pull the beam out against my will. I have to be honest. And if I'm not seeing myself, if I'm not, if my perception doesn't match reality, then I'm gonna have trouble. Okay, let's go on to our last question. Our last question is describe the behavior in verses 34 and 35. So it says, yes, you will be like one who lies down in the midst of the sea, or like one who lies at the top of the mast, saying, they have struck me, but I was not hurt. They've beaten me, but I didn't feel like it. I didn't feel it, pardon me. So what's their behavior like? They beat me, but what? I didn't feel it. I didn't feel it. Anyone have any thoughts on what's going on there?
They're numb,
They're numb. And that
emotionally
can
and physically,
emotionally, physically, they are
spiritually,
unfeeling. Do what, Pat?
spiritually as well.
And spiritually as well. They are unfeeling. They are calloused. They are feeling invincible. All right. There's a reason of all of the nicknames given to alcohol. What are some of the nicknames? Booze, obviously. What are some of the nicknames for alcohol? We'll see if it shows up. Anyone think of any?
Hooch.
Hooch.
Mhm.
One of them is liquid courage. Liquid courage.
Liquid stupidity, more likely.
Fair enough. We could go down that rabbit hole because in some ways it fools rush in where angels fear to tread. So is it courage or is it stupidity? Right? And so it's nonetheless, so here's the person who they're not feeling it. They're not feeling any pain. Scripture talks about different kinds of consciences, talks about us needing to be tender-hearted. One of all the consciences, one of them that is described in Scripture is talks about those who have a seared conscience. And a seared conscience, it's you're not feeling anything, right? So how would you describe how would you describe someone who is unfeeling, calloused, things along those lines? How do they treat others? And y'all have already said it pretty much.
A sensitive person will treat other people sensitively. So
Okay.
a person that does not feel things does not treats other people the same way, thinking they don't feel things either.
And whether they don't care, right?
No.
It's like they don't care who they hurt. And we can do the same thing. And we can become very unfeeling and very, very calloused. And that's pretty easy to do. We get convinced of our own rightness. We believe our own hype, right? Because we're not seeing things real clearly. And we're engaging in self-destructive behavior, and we don't care who we take down with us. And so here's a person, it's like, I'm feeling no pain. Just think about Saul of Tarsus and how Saul of Tarsus, how he becomes the Apostle Paul, obviously. I have lived in all good conscience before people. There's different ways to live in all good conscience. Paul, and when he was Saul, he was wanting to do God's will. Now, when he was Saul of Tarsus, he was obviously not doing that, but nonetheless, that's what he wanted to do. But another way, and so what Paul is saying is, I have not violated my conscience. Well, there's different ways to not violate your conscience. One is, it's like you are very disciplined. That's one way to not violate your conscience. Like, I discipline myself, lest when I preach to others, I myself should become disqualified. I bring my body into subjection. But another way to live in all good conscience is to just not care. And at that point, you don't have a conscience. It's, I don't care who I hurt. And so there Paul was. And again, Paul says, I am innocent of the blood of all men, right? In that same context. Well, here another person is, and they're like, you know what? I don't care about anybody else. I'm innocent. Like, like Pilate washing his hands before the crowd. I'm innocent. Was he really innocent? No. And so here this individual is, and it's like he's feeling no pain. He's feeling no pain. What thoughts do you have on that one in describing their behavior? And it's just these traits that obviously, they apply to drunkenness, but they apply to so much other so many other things as well. All of these points. Anyway, yeah, go ahead, Mark. Thank you.
On the whole, the culture affects some of this. Like in the past, smoking was, pushed movies, magazines, and so forth. And, a lot of people did it. Now more knowledge is available, and it has gone down quite a bit and among the young. But like the World War II generation who went through so much and everything, and a lot of it, especially the men, they were not you solved your own problems. You didn't seek out help, you didn't
Yeah.
complain. So people have suffered a lot of stuff in the war and this and that, and kind of like self-medication, a lot of them, unfortunately. But now again, we know more, and even on the campuses, I think it's less. And they used to have those beer blasts and all that, and these kids hadn't done it, and they'd get sick and throw up in the residence hall and all this junk. But now again, there's a lot less excuse for engaging in it. So
I wonder, just as you're describing that, I was just thinking of a picture and soldiers and everything that they have to deal with. And the what you just described, they bottle it all up. They bottle it up. Just thought it was interesting, that figure, you bottle it up. So this individual, they're in those last few verses. They've struck me, but I was not hurt. They beat me, but I did not feel it. When shall I wake that I may seek another drink? Here's a person, they think nothing will stop them, right? They think, I can just keep doing this forever, and no one will ever hold them responsible. And then the Lord comes along. It's like, no, eventually, either, sort of like the movie, maybe not today and maybe not tomorrow, but one day and then for the rest of your life. And at some point, you're held accountable for the choices that you make, whatever those choices may be. Anyone have any other thoughts? We still have 2 minutes exactly left. Yeah, go ahead, Michael.
Well, we used to say, well, that's an old saying that I always got was, let's go out and get drunk and be somebody important is pretty much it.
And it's just it's not a good life.
Yeah.
If you've ever been around it, which it sounds like some of y'all have, whether it's in families or in the workplace, it's destructive. It destroys families. It destroys individuals, it destroys families,
Hmm.
it can destroy workplaces, you know, on and on and on and on we go. Noah in the Old Testament, Noah was called a blameless man. And yet, right off the boat, and what happens? And he becomes drunk.
Yep.
And great shame. So we'll go ahead and call it there. Appreciate y'all. Hope this has been helpful tonight. Good to see everyone, and hope everyone has a good week. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
Okay, John, thanks.
Yep, y'all take care.